Shabbos really is the remedy for all of the difficulties of Mitzrayim. Let's try to explain this. Welcome to Nesiva Shalom on Parshas Vaeira on All Parsha. The Rabbi brings two midrashim that are both in Parshas Shemos as we analyze Parshas Vaeira. The first midrash says that when Moshe Rabbeinu went out and he saw their difficulties, Vayar b'sivlosam, he saw their difficulties. The midrash in Shemos Rabbah explains that the meaning of this is that he saw that they were suffering from the lack of Shabbos. So he went to Paro and he said to Paro, if a person has a slave and he works him 7 days a week, then the slave will die. You really should give him time off. And Paro says, do what you think is right. And Moshe Rabbeinu gave them Shabbos, and this was the beginning of their redemption. But later on in the end of Parshas Shmos, the pasuk says, Tichbar ha'avoda, strengthen or make the work heavier on them. This is the end of the parsha last week when there was more obligation, more difficulty because they had to now collect their own straw. And it says, Ba'al yish'ulo divrei sheker, let them not be involved in these lies as they're saying that they want to go out of Mitzrayim. And on this the Medrash says that Paro said to him, you know what the issue is? These people have time off because it was known that Klal Yisrael had Megillos, they had scrolls that told them about the redemption. And when did they have time to look at these scrolls? They had time on Shabbos, because on Shabbos they had time off. So Paro said, they have time on Shabbos to look at these false predictions of their redemption. Get rid of the Shabbos. And not only that, but the Medrash in Vayikra Rabbah says that Yisrael is only nigel b'schus Shabbos, in the merit of Shabbos. That's how the Geula, that's how the redemption took place. So we have three sources that connect Shabbos to Geulas Mitzrayim. One that said that it was that which they had the time off that Moshe had asked for them that began their zechus to get out of Mitzrayim. One that when Paro said that I see they want to leave, he said, then get rid of their Shabbos. And the third, the basic articulation of a statute that Klal Yisrael is only redeemed because of the Shabbos. So what is the connection between Shabbos and Yetzias Mitzrayim? The Rebbe says that in all cases, the geula of anything, the redemption of anything, is found in the depth of its gullus. So what was the depth of the gullus of Mitzrayim? And here the Rebbe goes into very deep ideas that one would have to look carefully into these ideas. And the title here is Ein Yisrael Nigolan Ela B'Schus HaShabbos. That's the piece we're talking about, which is quite lengthy. Here the Rebbe talks about an idea that Ariel speaks of, that the problem that led to the Golus Mitzrayim was a pagam, a deficiency in Emunah and Kedusha, a deficiency in Das, in the clarity of mind that one has to have in order to not only serve Hashem properly, but also to sacrifice desires and to properly serve Hashem in spite of the fact that I can admit I want to do something that's inappropriate. I can still say, no, I know clearly that HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He is watching me and that His way is the proper way. Emunah and Kedusha, belief or knowledge of Hashem, and living a life of sanctity are intermingled. In fact, when Avram Avinu is told that we're going to go to Mitzrayim, he's told that we will go to Mitzrayim, and the language of the pasuk is Ki ger yeh zaracha, that your zera, which literally means seed, will be a ger, will be a stranger in that land. And the Mekubalim, the tzaddikim say that the problem will be in zaracha. It will be in your offspring. It will be in those pagamim, those deficiencies that happen because of a lack of discipline in the sensual realm. And this, of course, is very wrapped up in Shovavim, this time of year that we were working on the correction of these elements. But the bottom line is that the ultimate salvation from Mitzrayim will be because of overcoming these pagamim, these deficiencies. So Paro is the opposite of this. Paro is the one who says, Lo yadati es Hashem. I don't know Hashem. And in another piece of Parshas Vaeira, we've spoken before about a very deep idea that the Makos correspond to this. Paro says, Lo yadati es Hashem. I don't know Hashem. And every one of the Makos before each of the sections of Ditzach Hadash Be'achav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Leman Yedu Mitzrayim, or Leman Teda. Again and again, he says the language of, you will know. You see, you'll see through my Makos that I'm in control below, that's Dam Tzvardeh and Kinim. I'm in control on the plane of the land, that's Arov Devar and Shechin. And I'm in control above the land and in all of the land. That's bara arba choshech makas bechoros. In each and every one of those things, you have the standoff between Paro's lo yadati es Hashem and lahavdil HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, you will know. You will know. So Yetzias Mitzrayim and the events of the Makos come into the idea that there is knowledge. There is yediyah. You will know. And that is why Shabbos corresponds to Yetzias Mitzrayim, because Shabbos ultimately is the space in which a Yid knows. By the way, we can feel this practically. We can feel this in our own sense that on Shabbos, the Yetzer Hara is diminished. It's the Yom HaDinishmasa. It's the day of the soul. On Shabbos, the Yetzer Hara, really, like we say in our own local place here, that in the battle between the body and the soul, the body has home field advantage in this world. But on Shabbos and Yontif, now the soul, the neshama, has home field advantage. That's the delicious beauty of the 3-day Yontif, even though we must admit that it can be difficult, especially for the Balabuster who has to put on so much effort to make a 3-day Yontif. But nevertheless, it's such an advantage. We've wrestled back the power of our Yetzer Tov over our Yetzer Hara. It doesn't solve all problems, but it changes the balance a little bit. Because the Shabbos is the day of the soul. And Shabbos is the day of Yediyah Brura. It's the day that we know. Shabbos is also the day of Kedusha, because Vayikadosh Asa, Kadosh Baruch Hu put Kedusha into the world, and we become more resolved to doing what is right. I'll just mention, by the way, incidentally, that perhaps some of those who are listening to this year can learn the Hakdama, the preface in the Mishnah Berurah to Chelik Gimel. There, the Chafetz Chaim describes very deeply the centrality of Shabbos, and it's not for the weak of heart. He really speaks about how vital to the mission of a Jew Shmiras Shabbos is, Kilchasa at the highest level. But returning to the Rebbe says that Shabbos is the opposite of Golus Mitzrayim, and therefore, if Golus Mitzrayim at the heart of it is a lack of Yediyah and a lack of Kedusha, and the Makos are to incorporate that Yediyah, that incorporate that knowledge, and to lead to a life of Kedusha. And as we've talked about before, the Rebbe writes in Parshas Bo, brings the Pirkei Rebbe Elazar that says that it's actually the Tana of Ariel that says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded us to put the blood on the doorposts as we were leaving Mitzrayim. He commanded us to do that because the blood on the doorpost was the blood of the Karban Pesach, which is Emunah, Yediyah, and it is the blood of the Bris Milah of that night, that is Kedusha. So the Yid is supposed to live a life of Emunah and Kedusha, and Shabbos is Emunah and Kedusha. Shabbos is that knowledge that restores us to knowing what is right and doing what is right. And therefore, Shabbos is the antidote. Shabbos is the Yetzias Mitzrayim in every generation. Shabbos is the Yetzias Mitzrayim from my own personal Mitzrayim that closes me in and traps me in the temptations of the Yetzer Hara, temptations that can be perhaps exemplified by the temptation of Eshes Potiphar. And so every one of us has to strengthen our Shabbos in order to live a life that is proper and real. And Shabbos means not to increase the food intake that is just about the pleasure of my stomach, but to increase the beauty of the Shabbos, the commitments of the Shabbos, the Kedusha of the Shabbos, the Shmiras of the Shabbos, all of those things in order for myself to redeem myself from Mitzrayim, B'siyata Deshmaya, with this antidote that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us and infused into our lives. May it be Hashem's will that we tap into the Kedusha of Shabbos, and through this, we redeem ourselves from whatever Mitzrayim we have. We live up to this time of year that carries so much potential to be a true Eved Hashem. Have a great Shabbos.